The only thing more ridiculous than what I'm about to propose for the Oakland Athletics is the belief that John Fisher somehow has what it takes to get a Major League Baseball stadium built. Sure, he can secure partial public funds, he can release all the renderings he wants, but when it comes time to pay for the damn thing, dude is suspiciously absent. At this point, it feels like the where doesn't even matter. Oakland, San Jose, Fremont, Las Vegas, perhaps his next stop is Ulaanbaatar. After all, you cannot spell Ulaanbaatar without the A's, all 5 of them. You get the idea though. If Fisher had $500 million, he would have a new stadium by now. But he doesn't, so he doesn't. Thinking otherwise is simply a pipe dream. Speaking of pipe dreams, I would like to return to one I remember seeing a while back. The idea of the Oakland-Sacramento Athletics, or I guess you could just call them the NorCal A's. At first, I thought the idea of the teams spending time in 2 cities was funny and a little ridiculous, but the more I mulled it over, the more I believe it could actually work in keeping the team here in Northern California. Full disclaimer, this is not my idea. I don't even remember where I saw it now. Perhaps it was Reddit, maybe in the comment section in a video about the A's relocation. I don't know, but whoever did say it first deserves credit. I just don't know who you are, buddy. I won't pretend that this is a likely solution or even a plausible one at that. However, I do think there is something here. At the very least, I think it's sort of fun to think about. I also think that there is some substance in this discussion and that it may be a solution at some point down the road for professional sports teams. When it comes to a franchise having 2 homes, well, this is not an entirely new concept. The most notable example here stateside is the Kansas City-Omaha Kings. Believe it or not, that ownership group actually intended to have 3 cities be home. It was going to be the Kansas City, Omaha, St. Louis Kings. For whatever reason, St. Louis didn't make the cut. Anyway, the deal here was mostly due to Kemper Arena in Kansas City still being under construction for the first 2 years the Kings were scheduled to play in their new home. Unfortunately, Casey's Municipal Auditorium was not available for all home dates for the Kings. Additionally, Omaha had hosted 11 Kings games in 1968, so the franchise actually had some familiarity with the city. The arrangement with the multiple homes only lasted for 3 seasons before the Kings moved to Kansas City full-time. Recently, we had the Tampa Bay Rays proposing to share that franchise between Tampa Bay and Montreal. Those plans were abandoned, but I always felt that proposal was very interesting and potentially could have led to something. The logistics, though, would have been a nightmare having 2 homes so far away. The good thing about Sacramento and Oakland is that it's about a 90-minute or so drive away. Down under in Australia's National Rugby League, you have a couple of clubs there that share 2 homes. These teams are actually a byproduct of clubs that have merged together and still want to represent their different areas, most notably being St. George Illawarra, which plays games down in Wollongong, as well at Nestra Jubilee Oval in Sydney. Back in the world of Major League Baseball, when it comes to a franchise having 2 homes representing 2 cities, well, I think first and foremost, it would require an innovative, forward-thinking ownership group that was committed to making this type of arrangement work. Speaking of forward-thinking and innovative, just about every billionaire in Northern California uses those 2 increasingly hollow words to describe themselves and their companies. Maybe the Oakland-Sacramento A's can actually put some meaning back into those overused adjectives. When we look at potential owners on the Sacramento side, you of course have Vivek Ranadive, a man who fancies himself as quite the outside-the-box thinker. In reality, he's just a dude who doesn't think all that much before blurting out some really terrible idea that other people didn't have to clean up and explain why that's a terrible idea, but let's not get hung up on that. What Ranadive has here, though, is an innovative solution that gets him in the Major League Baseball game. The same would go for Joe Lacob or whatever tech player or other executive is making moves for the franchise on the Oakland side of the equation. When you look at MLB ownership structures, most teams have multiple owners, a ton of stakeholders, maybe not a ton, but quite a few stakeholders that comprise the overall 100% of the pie when it comes to team ownership. Ownership groups at a lot of clubs in Major League Baseball are comprised of various different owners and entities. Each one has voting rights and whatnot. To that end, some say the idea of a split city team doesn't work because, well, the Sacramento and Oakland groups wouldn't get along. Maybe that's true. Then again, you have ownership groups in the same city at loggerheads over which direction their team should be heading. Look no further than San Francisco as proof of that. The Giants pushed out both Peter McGowan and Bill Newcomb for simply wanting to win games and spending a little money, which they were earning a lot of. In other words, any MLB franchise, any professional sports franchise not owned by one person is going to potentially face this issue. It's not because a team plays in two cities that it'll be a prominent challenge. It's a challenge everywhere you go. For the potential owners of the Oakland-Sacramento A's, buying 50% or so of an MLB franchise or putting together a group to buy 50% is easier than the whole kit and caboodle. What I would actually like to see here is for 45% of the franchise to be owned by the Oakland side, 45% to be owned by the Sacramento side, and then that final 10% split up evenly amongst fans in Oakland and Sacramento through shareholder programs or what have you, just allowing them to have a stake in the process, which I think is becoming increasingly important. What this does for the potential owners on the Sacramento and Oakland sides is that it allows them to save money, which can then be used to build a stadium. We know that each ownership group here would want to build one of those ballpark villages around the stadium, and even if you split up the team in two homes, each side does get their wish. Speaking of stadiums, well, let's turn our attention to that. When we talk about the facility, I think it's very important to address just where exactly we're at when it comes to the modern Major League Baseball stadium. 45,000, 50,000 seat venues are just unnecessary. Honestly, it looks like Major League Baseball attendance is probably going to keep declining. So the idea that you're getting 35, 40,000 to most regular season games, and I don't care what MLB attendance wants to tell you, look with your eyes, it's not happening. 20, 25,000, that's a realistic target for regular season baseball games. Putting in a bunch of seats that you're simply hoping to sell in the playoffs is pointless. And it also means regular season games are just going to have these vast sections of empty seats. Additionally, this could give us the opportunity to reimagine what the Major League Baseball stadium should be. 20 to 25,000 seats in a more intimate setting, with most people in places where they want to sit, namely anywhere between third and first base running around home plate. Then you have lots of standing room only, lots of flexible seating. Allow people to walk around and see the game from different vantage points. No one wants to be cooped up in some small seat for 9 innings. Even now the games are shorter. It's not fun. It's cool to be able to go around a stadium and to take in the game from different areas. Beyond that, how about outfield rail seating? Seriously, how cool would it be to give A's fans all the room they need in the outfield for flags, drums, signs, all of that? Quite frankly, I envision it as the baseball equivalent to what you would see at Westfalen Stadion with Borussia Dortmund, or at a lot of the Japanese games or the Korean, the KBO games, where you just are giving fans a chance to be lively, be rowdy, be in the element they want to be in. Apart from that, you fit out the premium areas around the stadium as you see fit without the need for so many upper deck seats. You could even go higher in that regard. And then when you're bringing the total capacity together, traditional seating, premium seating, standing room areas, rail seating, you probably want to get around 30 to 35,000 seats in total. The goal here should be cutting out all the bits that are unnecessary, that you don't need, but that tend to drive up building costs. Maximize what sells and get rid of what doesn't, but may be expected at an old school baseball stadium. The point of this isn't to create the 2 most expensive stadiums in the world or the 2 most cutting edge baseball stadiums in the world. It's creating 2 places where baseball fans in Northern California want to go see games from. That, by the way, is something that continues to be lost in the shuffle when it comes to stadium design and development. As far as the cities themselves are concerned, I think you just focus on easy win sites. Oakland at the Coliseum, Sacramento at Raleigh Field. You can even stagger out construction so the team always has a place to play over the next 10 or so years. Next, we need to focus on just who the hell's going to be using the stadium. Well, obviously, the A's will be playing half of their home games in Oakland and half of their home games in Sacramento, but what opportunities exist beyond that? I think you can get creative here. Seriously, why not have the River Cats or whoever the A's AAA affiliate is serve as tenants at both stadiums as well? From a calendar dates perspective, this can sort of make you whole. If you have 40 or so home games for Major League Baseball, and then you have another 35, 38, whatever the case may be, with the River Cats, you're getting pretty close to 80. There are several other reasons this is interesting, though. Perhaps more importantly, it provides an affordable option for baseball in both cities throughout the year. Maybe you aren't seeing the A's in Sacramento or Oakland, but you're still seeing players who may one day suit up for the A's. You will always get people that will dismiss that concept, claiming no one's going to pay to watch minor league baseball when they have a Major League Baseball side in town. And for that, I'd argue, well, look at the cost here. If ticket prices are $30 or whatever for the MLB team, and then you've got another 30 or 40 for parking, you've got all of these expenses, it's not necessarily affordable for everyone. But if that expense is slashed by 2/3 or 3/4 for a minor league game at the same venue, I think it's an option. It just makes it more accessible for everyone to come out and see baseball. That is what this should all be about, getting people to come out and watch baseball, support baseball in all of Northern California. This should be the goal of the franchise. It should really be the goal of Major League Baseball, although you get the feeling that's not necessarily the case. Personally, I would like to see these stadiums fitted to support Oakland and Sacramento's USL soccer team. Not soccer specific, mind you, but just soccer supportive. Things like flexible media boxes that can be converted into premium seating when you switch sports. Going back to the rail seating, if you have that in the outfield, that can then be used as a supporter section for the USL team. Not huge, expensive adjustments, just small tweaks, small adjustments you can make with soccer in mind that improve the viewing experience for that sport. Maybe even it gets you an international friendly. Then, of course, you always have the potential for other events throughout the summer, really from spring through to autumn. Concerts, stuff like that. Even with only half the number of MLB games taking place at these stadiums, it's really not all of that difficult to keep the facilities busy and profitable. In fact, if you put in a little work and you schedule accordingly, it should be a slam dunk. We move on to logistics, which is probably the thing most people want to cite as the most unworkable about this entire proposal. And to that, I say, well, plenty of people already commute from the Valley to the Bay Area, so what's the big deal here? And if you're really worried about it, just base the team in Fairfield. If it's good enough for those shady, mysterious figures behind Forever California, I'm sure it's good enough for the Oakland A's here. It's obviously a nice halfway point, and you can probably find land around to build whatever size, scope, training facility you want to build. You can make it new, modern, you can create a whole baseball complex for all of the youth of Solano County if you wanted to. Besides, let's not pretend that MLB players are living like a few blocks away from their stadiums. We know for a fact there have been plenty of Sacramento Kings players over the year that choose to live in Granite Bay despite the fact that it's like 30 miles from downtown. On the flip side, you could argue having the Major League Baseball team and the AAA side in close quarters, sort of around, mingling, using the same facilities as a boon for the entire franchise. It's an ideal way to streamline player development. It makes calling players up and sending players down easier. It probably even takes a bit of the sting out of being sent down to the minors. Ultimately, the logistics is something that I firmly believe can be worked out. It's not this huge, insurmountable obstacle some out there would have you believe. The real winner here is Northern California and fans of baseball. Think of all the creative ticket packages that would be available to you. Think about just the accessibility to sports. Having different options with different teams and different stadiums, it's pretty exciting when you think about it. Let's be real about one fact here. The monotony of 81 Major League Baseball games in the same place, in the same stadium, it can feel like a damn burden at times. But if you have 2 home stadiums and 2 nearby cities, it keeps things sort of fresh. Then you have the AAA element, possibly the USL element as well. It really turns these stadiums into vibrant hubs of sporting activity, and it gives fans lots of different options, lots of different options when it comes to affordability, when it comes to entertainment. I think it's just a better overall experience than one team playing 81 baseball games in one stadium. The multi-billion-dollar question here then comes, is this concept, is this proposal financially viable? And the answer to that, I think, is yes, but I'm inclined to believe more commercial opportunities exist for the A's throughout Northern California if they did have an expanded footprint. Now, it takes an innovative approach to tap into this. It also takes an understanding from everyone, a firm understanding from everyone, that this is the same team, even when you're seeking out local opportunities in Sacramento or Oakland, that everyone is working together for a common goal business-wise. In theory, you're at least doubling the available opportunities, potentially lowering the entry costs for anyone who wants to get involved as it relates to sponsors or other companies. You're also going to be able to unlock all types of different partnerships that cannot exist in a one team, one town arrangement. Even with that smaller focus, you of course still have the huge overarching brand that covers the entire region, something that most teams have and that the A's would still have opportunities to exploit. Like, for example, think about the dot races at the Coliseum, which have long been sponsored. They can still sponsor all of those A's dot races, and they're going to get a hell of a lot more visibility under an Oakland-Sacramento partnership than simply broadcasting them 81 times to the same crowd at the Coliseum. Everything needs to go into the same pot and be distributed equally among the ownership sides. None of this, well, our side brought in X amount of money. There shouldn't even be sides in the first place. Outside of ticket revenue and stadium revenue, everything, all other revenue should be shared. There should actually just be a top-down strategy and in local strategies. That means the ownership group should just simply hire one department with one boss and local heads maintaining all of the commercial activities. In other words, you don't have two different teams, two different sides doing two different things. One team, one goal, two stadiums, or that's three. Never mind. Looking at the attendance aspect of this, by the way, there's something interesting that needs to be pointed out, because the big argument against this would, of course, be, well, less games mean less money, and that is true. Of course, you can't argue that. But with each team only having 40 or so major league games a year, scarcity keeps attendance high, keeps ticket prices higher. You could probably even get more per game when it comes to season ticket packages. Then when you look at the top level, the Oakland-Sacramento level, for those highest of high level sponsors, the opportunities here, the visibility, the reach, all of that stuff is far greater than simply being in one place. That is why financially, this is viable. There are challenges, I'm not going to lie, but you can make this work and be more successful than a traditional baseball team is. So now we need to discuss that other ball club in Northern California, the Giants. What about the San Francisco Giants? Well, I firmly believe they would piss their pants upon hearing this sort of arrangement. It would mean they could no longer rest on their laurels. Competition is vital in business, and this would create all kinds of competition. They would step their game up to compete with the Oakland-Sacramento A's. They'd have to do more. They would just have to improve everything that they have sort of slacked on for the past decade or so. With that in mind, of course, they're going to hate the A's being a Northern California franchise. They would do everything in their power to block it. That, though, is probably the clearest sign that this isn't simply a viable idea, but that it's actually a pretty damn good one. Okay, so I'll freely admit not everything here is sunshine and steak sandwiches. There are several potential pratfalls challenges that need to be addressed. Perhaps the biggest is whether two stadiums, one in Oakland and one in Sacramento, can get built. Realistically speaking, probably not. Like, let's just be honest here. I doubt it. I highly doubt it. But I mean, hey, anything's possible. The one benefit of this type of arrangement, though, is that the money required to get everything done is significantly less. $1 billion for half of a team as opposed to $2 billion for an entire team. Instead of needing to build a $2 billion stadium, you can build a stadium somewhere around the $1.4-1.3 billion price range. That is a lot of money saved. Even if you're only getting half the MLB dates, the owners of both sides can still get all of the real estate development opportunities they are after with an anchor tenant in place. And that's kind of what this is all about. Look, we could sit there and say altruistically, Vivek Ranadive cares about having a sports team in Sacramento, but he doesn't give a damn. He's there to do some real estate development deals because it's the easiest money you can ever make. Elsewhere, there would of course be some concern surrounding a divided ownership group. Like what happens if one half wants to move or something? To that, I'd counter the ownership groups in Sacramento and Oakland would be strongly opposed to that. In fact, any potential owners should be more than willing to sign long-term, binding agreements with both each other and the city to keep the teams in place for 50, 100 years, however long you want to make it. I mean, they basically said they're committed to these cities. Well, sign on the dotted line. And if they still must sell, well, let's put in that agreement that you need to give the local municipalities a 2-year window to buy the team or find buyers for the team committed to keeping it local. Again, not a huge ask, but something that would help get this over the line, especially for people as committed to the local areas as these folks say they are. Then you have the players. Some may claim players won't want to sign for a team of 2 cities. To that, I say puppycock. If you build a good organization, an organization that handles logistics well, that pays fair market rates for players, and that, above all else, shows a commitment to winning, this will not be an issue. I am not saying this is a probable scenario. Hell, I wouldn't even say this is a realistic scenario. I do think it's one, though, when you mull over, you look at the pros to it, there's something here worth considering. There are merits to having a team play in 2 cities, especially in Major League Baseball when you have such a large inventory of home dates. Then you add in a AAA team to sort of backfill some of the stadium openings, a potential USL team also using this facility. Well, there's a lot to like, and there's a lot of potential avenues for owners to get to profitability. Now, it will not be easy. Finding owners in cities to play nice, well, it may be a pipe dream, but hey, what's the point of making YouTube videos if you can't dream at least a little bit?